You kind of cannot force anyone to do anything. In the volunteering, today someone may come and say, hey, I will be engaged, and then disappear tomorrow. It again has nothing other than real drive of people. That is something that I find that gets teams engaged. What happened is that within 1 week, our servers went down and we did not have backups. And I was a fairly new program manager that just got this program a week ago. Within probably a couple of hours, I already knew that next day I'm sitting with the CEO of the whole corporation, explaining to him what's happening and what will we do. Everything is possible. It's just a matter of motivation and getting the right teams and the right people in place.
Welcome to the B2B Experience, brought to you by Big Light, Europe's leading independent experience design agency. In this podcast series, we speak to digital pioneers in B2B and tell real stories of breaking down barriers and delivering change. So my guest today is Przemek, who is the Director of the Transformation Office at Brenntag. He's a regular speaker and a long-term volunteer. So Przemek, you're in a big role in a large organization. Complex B2B organization. I thought it would be good to start off with asking you to describe your role.
Absolutely. And first of all, hi, Steve. Hello, everyone. And thank you for having me here. My role is fairly simple. My job is to make sure that technology and business talk together and that we deliver value internally and to our customers, right? And if you are to simplify it even further, is we are supposed to be the easiest to do business with. And I am there to build the bridges across all the parties there.
And you've mentioned before, it's quite a complex environment in terms of legacy technologies and just complexity of the business model.
Our organization is a lead. If you haven't ever heard about Brenntag is a leader in chemical ingredients distribution, logistics, supply chain. This is our core business. We focus on two things. One is delivering that to our clients in specific shape and form. And we do have specialties business where we mix things together or we create new formulas for our clients. Now, this is a German-originated business, which grew rapidly, mainly through acquisitions, organically, of course, as well, but mainly through acquisitions. And as you can imagine, that brings its own set of complexities and challenges. Some of those being multiple ERP systems, multiple CRM systems, multiple systems, right? Data consistency challenges, and all the other things that we are tackling one way or the other as the organization.
Very good, thank you. And so, but before your current role, I hope you don't mind me describing your career journey as fairly diverse over a 20-year period.
So indeed, diverse, yet connected. A lot of it is connected to technology. Now that moved me into the corporate world, where I joined Thomson Reuters. There I was responsible for technology M&A, so integration. Whenever Thomson Reuters be buying companies, right, and how do we integrate them technically? How do we do those things? And that led me eventually to joining Brenntag with a similar role of helping building the transformation office in the intersection of technology and business.
Can you think of an occasion where, in your current role or any role in particular, where you faced a situation where the diversity of your experience has really come into play?
Probably the easiest example would be understanding both sides of the table. Right. So if you work in the larger corporate, you work on top of course, quite significant team that we have at Brenntag. We do work with a lot of partners, be it freelancers, but also agencies or integrators. Right. And then understanding, right, how they operate, right? Being on that side of the service provider, actually, before leading that, having an understanding of their challenges, their problems, and being able to apply it into the discussions, not purely on the contract discussions, just to make sure that we get the right result on the financial side of things, but actually understanding what's feasible, what's not feasible, and catching the things where maybe companies are overestimating their ability to deliver, because of course that's what they would be saying when they go through the RFQs and proposition stage, and really getting to this partnership and agreement between those things, that helps a lot.
Can I press you for a story? Can you think of a specific example? You sat there, you walked into the room.
One interesting story that I have is in one of the corporates I worked with. I just took over responsibility for one of the bigger programs on consolidating of the historically not fully integrated services and infrastructure. And then we just did our assessment of where we are, what's happening, how are things going, what are the risks. And we listed some of the risks. Like, for example, there are no backups in the organization on the financial hub that is serving probably 1/4 of our business, right? In that area, in that region, that would be in the MENA region, but from Cape Town. And then what happened is that within 1 week, our servers went down, right? And we did not have backups. Servers went down. And I was a fairly new senior project manager / program manager that just got this program a week ago, right? And then you can imagine, if it's serving 1/4 of your financial volume, right? It's a big thing, right? That needs to be addressed very quickly. So what happened there is that within probably a couple of hours, I already knew that next day I'm sitting with the CEO of the whole corporation, right? Explaining to him what's happening and what will we do. And now, so I'm sitting with our team, right? And we think, okay, yes, we did the risk. We mapped that this is the risk, but we only just came into thinking, what will we do with that, right? And then what came handy is understanding from the previous activities that we did of, again, what's feasible, what's not feasible. So what we thought, hey, and that was a very manual, very interesting setup. But it's not that everything is down, not that everything burned in the servers, right? But there are some physical components that may be challenged. The data should be available. How do we manage that, right? And then we thought, okay, everything is possible. It's just a matter of motivation and getting the right teams and the right people in place. So we got people taking the local servers from other of our offices, probably 700 kilometers away from there, right? They took their own private car, right? They put that server at the back of the truck. Right? They drove those 700 kilometers with that small server while our technology team, globally distributed, was setting up different things to be able to help them and support them remotely, while at the same time trying to support the business to survive.
Right. And did you ever have the conversation with the CEO?
Oh, I did. He was not happy, of course, at first, right? But we promised him that, yeah, we'll do what we can, we'll address it, and so on. So for the CEO or C level, it's usually about reliability. So your team and your organization infrastructure be reliable, right? So whenever something is down, there's a problem. Whenever everything is okay, you're not looking into that, right? It just should be running smoothly. But that was a very senior person, knowing that things happen, especially with some older stuff, when there was no budget to invest into those. So actually, two things happened. One is after explanation, and what you need to do really with the C-level people is to give them short, succinct information what happened, but then what are you doing with that, and when roughly you expect next changes or next updates. So you provide that, then at least they can manage their own stakeholders there. And the second thing is what they're interested in, and this gentleman was as well, is how do you make sure that this doesn't happen again? And even though, at the time I was responsible for one section of that, actually we already built additional things for this type of activities to be added into disaster recovery, to earlier stage due diligence, to the discussions, to planning and financial planning, including that as well, which was actually implemented later on in a larger corporate.
I mentioned at the beginning that you do a fair amount of speaking, thought leadership. I just wanted to touch on that before we move on. So you're quite active in speaking. Why do you do that? Why is that important to you?
It started already when I was a student. At the time, I took a role in the students' parliament, and eventually was leading that organization. And that required a lot of convincing, a lot of speaking, both to the smaller gremiums, but also to the larger population. And I found out that I enjoy doing that it brings energy to it, to speak, to interact with the people. So at the time, one of the things that we've set up was we've set one of the students' organization to be focused on training other students in multiple things, mainly around soft skills, as they call them, right? And that was part of that group, where we trained ourselves first, and then we trained other students on doing different things, right? And again, I found that it drives my energy level even more, right? When we do have this interaction, right? Because you learn a lot from participants, even if you're a subject matter expert on one thing, but they do have their own experiences, and then this interaction helps a lot. So mainly, it was about the energy levels at first. And then it naturally converted into meeting new people, right? Networking, as they call it, right? But through not just let's meet, let's shake hands, and let's never see each other again. But if you do it through the interaction, that either you delivered something that was interesting for those people, and they come with the real cases for the discussion after the presentation or during the workshops, right? And then you get to know those cases. You immediately have this link and bond. Hey, we have similar problems, right? Or maybe I've already solved it, or maybe they found a different way of doing that, right? And getting this link is super nice, and that's the actual power of future potential collaboration, is that we've done something together, even if that was only on the intellectual level, right? Of course, doing the project together or collaborating together is the next step, right? But just doing that gives you much better link. I do have a lot of those cases where we've started something during the presentations or workshops, and then eventually ended up coming back to the discussions, maybe following up, maybe helping that organization deliver something further.
So we talked about your time back in Gdansk at university in the student parliament, but that also seems, looking back at your career, also there's been a parallel strand from that point onwards. I counted 13 separate volunteering activities that you've been involved in since then. So volunteering has been a strand that's run through your career as well. So what drove you to that as an activity? I mean, we're all busy, and you're a busy career life, but finding time to volunteer as well. What drove you to do that?
Early stage, that was probably by accident. The very, very early stage, as it often happens with different things, right? There is this concept of accidental project manager as well, right? That people stumble upon doing something and then delivering value, and actually thinking, "Hey, this is something interesting." But on the volunteering, so actually I started more as a member rather than active volunteer, being a scout. In different countries, it works differently, right? But I was quite active scout. I eventually took over more leadership positions there to help guide the organization, or help grow kids and young people. Then in the student parliament, and a few other things that I'll come back there. But this early stage, what I found really helps me, and if I go with this, why do you do things, right? What's the core of your personality? It helps with. I like helping people, and I like growing people, right? And that motivates me. I do get energy from that. And so with that, this works for me as well. And so I do like doing active things with people, but see how they grow. And that was first in the scouting. You can see those kids grow, take more adult roles, right? Moving with their lives, but then you can observe them with multiple of them. I do have contact till this day, right? And having this amazing stories and adventures that we either share or I was able to observe as they had. Um, so that's where I started being involved there, and then initially it just happened, right? But then I started picking those leadership activities and actually thinking more about giving back. And this is something that you find in a number of organizations, that's a core theme behind those volunteering activities. It's about giving back to the community. I was, however you call it, privileged, lucky enough to have multiple amazing people on my way that helped me grow, helped me develop, helped me understand some things. Sometimes just by one sentence, sometimes by actually doing something on helping me move in one direction or the other. And I'd love to think that I am able to help some other people in the same way, be it just through the generic inspiration or larger scale things, or maybe through actual mentoring activities or focus work with some people. So this giving back is something that really resonates with me. Um, and then on top of that, there's always a mix of those things, right? This value that I mentioned before is always there on the collaboration with like-minded people. So when you go to the volunteering in the professional organizations, and I'm deeply involved in PMI, Project Management Institute, right? When you look at this organization, I think they have maybe 800 employees right now globally, right? And 12,000 professional volunteers across the world. And those are from very junior people trying the way, testing what's happening and looking if there's a space for them, to very, very senior people from big running their own organizations or running corporate strategy departments, project management organizations, and so on. Mm. And now, when you get to collaborate with them on the volunteering activities about helping to progress the profession or supporting some activity through the social projects, right? We do not talk about business, right? But we talk about getting those things done, right? We connect as human beings, and eventually, right? You see that the linkage happens extremely quickly, right? Because we already do have a lot of in common. We don't need to talk about it, right? We not only we work in the field or the area, but we also like to help others, give back to the community, be engaged in the volunteering activities, right? And that brings us close immediately. And I have a lot of friends coming out of those different volunteering activities that are friends for life, right? Across the whole world, right? Where it's not that often that you're able to build this kind of connections at work. One of the things that we did, we wanted to increase the engagement of our employees in one of the bigger organizations that we had. But this comes with a lot of challenges. Of course, you need to solve the core foundational challenges of the financials and culture and so on. But we wanted to have some additional engagement out of our people, that they are excited about doing things at work. And then what I found useful is that we did it through thinking about gamification. It was something at the time, at least, that everyone thought about in their organizations. And we did it in the way that we checked across the community of people in our organization who is playing board games, right? And getting the board games. And then I am vivid board gamer. So I did have a number of friends that were willing to come and help without any remuneration needed. We paid them, but they did not require that, right? To build a specific concept of just having the engagement workshops through board gaming, but then building a system that would be gamified within our organization, not by external consultants, not by people that come and tell you, hey, put points here, here, and here, but doing it together with the employees that volunteered, that wanted to be there and that they wanted to apply. And now why I think this is remarkable, because that gets the team engaged, and our score went up by more than 22%. Right? So of engagement, right? So when you start with the engagement of around 50%, let's say, and you get up to almost 75, that's a huge thing. That's 50% difference when you think about it, right? And we had very positive feedback, very well engaged people, because they did not only like being in that system, but they were engaged in enhancing it, changing it, and adapting to it. And the like-mindedness came from helpful from two things, right? One, help from the outside world came through the things that we did together. And the second is with the people inside that had the same kind of mindset of what they like and did not like. That's more about hobby than volunteering, right? But this is something that I find quite interesting. And maybe the other one that goes more into your activity question would be, as part of the activities at the organizations, you may get people really wanting to help someone, like that's something that drives me as well, but not having the place where they can do it or how they can link it to something meaningful. But then you can think about building the ecosystem. So one of the ecosystems that we've built in partnership between PMI, so Project Management Institute, that was early days for me there, right, and the corporate organization that I was working with, and some other partners, was that as PMI, we were facilitating organization of English camps, as we call it, right? So that would be for Polish children to learn English on the summer camps for kids that cannot afford it or have tough situations at home and so on. Right? And then when you think about it, professional organization promoting project management and doing social event for kids and holidays and so on, that initially that doesn't link for a lot of people. But actually what we did, we did a wheel there. Right? So we said, hey, as part of this, we will get volunteers from different organizations, including our organization, people involved from the business. Right? We will organize free trainings on project management for them. They will use in practice what they learn on organizing this project as a project, right? And actually organize it, right? And then get the benefit of learning, but also doing something positive. And we had phenomenal response from a lot of different volunteers. Firstly, just from one corporate, then from multiple corporates. And that completely changed the game also for the sponsoring of this kind of event. You often get those requests for the different sponsoring activities from different organizations. But if you first are able to engage the volunteers and there's passion behind those volunteers, I will tell you, money was not a problem, right? And that's a very unique thing to say, right? For that, and at the same time, those people started getting certifications, started getting more engaged in project management, started getting promoted in some cases, right? So you get this ecosystem, right, working, and then you think in the ecosystem way, you get this how do you call it, virtuous circle, right, of things growing there, and that you do with like-minded people coming both from the elements of volunteering and business.
Very good, thank you. And last question on volunteering really is that you mentioned before that when we spoke before that it's really helped you break down barriers and make change happen within your organization. So it's created a mindset for you that means that you can engage peers, people more senior than you and people more junior than you. Could you explain a bit what you meant by that, or give me an example of that?
Of course, that is not only something that happens in the volunteering, right? It happens everywhere. And you will have a lot of people coming out from business and learning that in the business. And that is how to collaborate, how to have two opposing views and actually get people working together. You would have facilitators, moderators, and so on helping with that. But what I really found interesting coming out of the volunteering work is that, there in those organizations, you kind of cannot force anyone to do anything. Of course, in business, you cannot do it as well, but there is a bigger leverage, right? Those people are getting paid, there are some rules, some activities, and so on. In the volunteering, today someone may come and say, hey, I will be engaged, and then disappear tomorrow. And that will be it. So finding this element of really understanding what motivates people, what drives them, having those candid conversations, but also having conversations about expectations, right? That people really understand that there are some things that we agree, we build a contract between ourselves, right, of how we will operate, building this operating model together. If you are able to do it quite well in the volunteering organization, it again has nothing other than real drive of people, and you're able to build that, then doing that in the organization where, well, hopefully people came because they want to work there, right? But different situations happen. But being able to build that, navigate through contracting with each other, maybe not in a formal way, but in just making sure that expectations are clear, that the things how we want to operate are clear. And then motivating people by showing them this bigger picture, right? What will we achieve and how how that links into their inner needs or inner growth activities. That is something that I find that gets teams engaged, and that transfers, for example, for majority of the teams that I worked with, that transferred into very good, that's a very formal way of saying that, right? But retention of the employees. People wanted to stay, they wanted to work, they wanted to grow, they wanted to be there, and to work in such way with other organization peers or leaders.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
I think the one that made biggest impact on how I think and behave in my adult, later professional life was do not negotiate with yourself. And let me explain what that means. People tend to find so many excuses why something will not work. Or in theory, they try to be empathetic and put the head of other person, of the client, of the partner, and think what they would be doing, right? And often that leads into saying, hey, that we shouldn't even start, right? Or let's reduce the price of our offering, even without talking to the customer. Let's say our price is 10 million, but we already think, oh, okay, we need to reduce, we need to give discounts up front and so on, because it's too much or anything else. And really often what you find that people, without even checking validity of the case or seeing what's there, they negotiate in their heads with themselves, right? And they lose because, well, one side wins, one side lose. So super interesting thing is that if you put this mindset, right, then you do not block yourself. You try things, you ask for things, you discuss things, and then it helps a lot in moving forward.
And conversely, if it isn't that, what's the one piece of advice you'd give other people in your situation? Not so much someone back at university in Gdansk, but more someone in the mid stage of their career, particularly within a complex organization, try to make change happen. What would be the most valuable advice you could give people?
Managing up. I think a lot of leaders forget about this. And if I'm mentoring some of the younger managers or senior managers that just never have time for that. They focus so much on their team, on their job, and they do fantastic job, right? KPIs moving forward, efficiency, all the things working well, team happy. But they often forget that probably 50% of your job as a senior leader is outside of your organization, being it internal and completely external, right? But showing, sharing cases, selling, and making sure that you manage expectations of your leader and the group around. And that is connected to one other thing, that if you're doing that, you should also make sure that your leader is your advocate, right? Or your ambassador. And that should be discussed and ideally contracted, that they know that you expect it from them, because they may forget, right? They may assume, hey, your job defends by yourself, right? You're doing a fantastic job. But they may not be doing things about managing up, right? And managing forward. So there's two things: manage up and make sure that your leader is your ambassador.
I've got one final question for you. It's our closing question, which is it's called B2B Buzzword Bingo. So can you think of one phrase or trend that's overhyped in B2B at the moment that you wish would just go away, and why?
I think right now there is only one big hype across the world on everything and anything, and that is AI and its usage. And while I definitely do see applications and positive cases, I think a lot of people forget that you first need to fix fundamentals. So I would say fundamentals first, shiny things second.
Very good. Thank you very much. Loved the conversation. Been really interesting. You have a lovely, calm delivery style, which comes across very well, very considered as well. So I've enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for leading me through this. I hope I answered the questions.
I just want to take a moment to let you know about the IR B2B Ecom Conference that's happening on the 29th and 30th of April this year in Manchester. It's a brand new event from IRX where manufacturers and distributors can meet, network, and hear actionable insights from digital leaders in B2B about making change happen. If you'd like to go along, then head over to the IRX website. And because we're a media partner at the event, you can use the code BIGLIGHT10 to get a 10% discount on your ticket. That's it. Hopefully see you there. Well, that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, then please visit the Big Light website. There, you'll be able to find other episodes and subscribe to access exclusive content. I'll see you next time.